first knew you were going to be involved in World War II, where were you? You recall that?
Let's see, it's an awful long time ago. I was actually stationed at what they call a CCC camp, which is the Civilian Consolation Corps, right up here in Camden, New York. Sunday morning when they made the announcement that Pearl Harbor was bombed. And I stayed in. I was actually I knew that people were being drafted in to go into the war, so I enlisted actually in the U.S. Army, because I figured that if I got drafted, I wouldn't have any choice of where I wanted to go. So I enlisted to go into the Army Signal Corps, and when I did that, I was able to go to Signal Corps school. So I was originally what they call the enlisted reserve, and I did go to school up in Troy, New York, for I think it was about 6 months, and I studied basic electricity and electrical circuits, things like that. So I actually enlisted at the time. Well, my brother had gone into the service before me. He was I think he also enlisted. He enlisted. He wanted to go into the air cadet training because he was always interested in airplanes, and so he was accepted, and he did get to go in. So he, although he was almost a little over a year younger than I am, he went in ahead of me. So that's how I got into the Army.
Did you have any friends going with you, or people you knew around the area?
No, I was all by myself.
Jeez.
I was actually called into active duty in June of '43. I enlisted in '42, but after I came out of school, the school of Troy, New York, they sent me a letter saying that I had to go on active duty, so I actually went on active duty in June of '43, and I went by myself to Fort Dix, New Jersey. That was where they did all what they call the processing. They give you your uniforms and clothes and so forth, and then they shipped me off with a group of other people, none of whom I knew.
None you know.
Shipped us off to basic training. I went off to basic training in Salt Lake City, camp near Salt Lake City,
Wow.
Utah.
That's a good.
By train, didn't fly in those days.
Did you complete high school or no?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
finished high school before I went into CCC camp in Brooklyn, New York.
That's good. Most of the vets we have, some of them, that's why we're doing the graduation thing. Most of them are coming back to get their diplomas.
To get their diplomas,
yeah.
yeah. I saw it in the paper.
They didn't
Yeah,
get a
that's
chance to
great.
graduate, yeah.
That's a great thing. Wonderful.
Can you explain your actual division and your rank, like what it actually means?
When I started, I was what they call a buck private. Just, in basic training, that's where you begin. And, I went through basic training up until December of '43, and then I signed up to go to cadet school. I saw an announcement that they were looking for soldiers to go to flying school, so I signed up for that. I was accepted, and when I got to flying school, they assigned us what we call aviation cadet, which the rank was equivalent to about a corporal. It's like 2 stripes. That's what we were. Either corporal or sergeant. I'm not sure of the exact rank, because we didn't wear the standard uniform. We wore what they call cadet uniform. And so I went all through cadet school as an aviation cadet. And when I was sent off in the middle, after my basic training, I was sent to Bombardier Navigator School in Texas, Midland, Texas. And when I graduated from that school, I was commissioned as a second lieutenant. That was in December of 40. It was actually the end of 43. Oh, 44, I'm sorry. The end of 44. And I was commissioned as so I was transferred from an enlisted man to what they call a officer at that time. And I was a second lieutenant. That was the rank that I finished up with.
Yeah, right there. One thing I noticed is with all the veterans that we've talked with or heard of, they go all around the country just like that, you know? And you must have experienced so many different things at that time.
Oh yeah, a lot of different places, a lot of things I'd never seen before. Only, I was 19, 20 at the time, and I had never been out of New York State before.
Jeez.
So that was a real experience to go all the way to
Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City. I went from, when I left Salt Lake City, they shipped me, this was on the way to cadet school now, they shipped me by train, by way of California, and came back through Arizona, and through Texas, and through New Orleans, and into Biloxi, Mississippi.
All around the country on a train.
Yep, by train, absolutely.
Was it hard to contact your family when you were traveling, or no?
Oh yeah, mostly by mail, by letters. Long distance wasn't that, once you knew that, you just didn't pick up the phone and call people. But you just, sent letters back and forth.
Yeah.
What were your actual jobs and duties?
Duties?
Like what you did,
KP.
your daily.
KP. I remember KP.
Just like your daily, like what you did every day when you woke up.
Routine.
Well, you get up, they got you up early. They got you up this was in basic training. You got up about 6 o'clock in the morning to get ready to go to chow, morning chow. And after you got done with chow, you marched off into what they call the drill field with the drill sergeant. And you drilled pretty much most of the morning. Learning how to carry a rifle and how to march in formation and turns and keeping in line and using your right feet,
Yeah.
And sometimes you go on short marches. You go out and you stay out with the set up tents and you stay out. A couple overnights, not too many overnights, luckily. And you came back and then you went to classes. You studied military routine rules, regulations, and so forth. And once you got done with that, and after, you always broke for lunch. If you're out in the field, you took your lunch with you. If you're on the post, you ate in the mess hall. They call it mess hall.
Mess hall duty.
And that's where if you're on KP duty, you worked in the kitchen. And you served, and after you served all the meals, you had to do all the dishes, and pots and pans. But after, at the end of the day, then you had your evening meal, and you had to go back to the mess hall around 5 or 6 o'clock, and after that, you're pretty much on your own during the evening. But you couldn't go anywhere because you had no transportation to get off. Off the post, you had to stay on the post and kind of go to a place what they call a recreation room, play games, pool, and cards, things like that.
Do you feel
That
that?
was a basic, day during basic training.
Yeah.
Some people that we've interviewed or talked to, again, they said that basic training, that's where you make your mistakes. So if you are called upon to go out to wherever, that you don't have that mistake to make.
Exactly, yeah.
But you learn your values there.
That's where the drill sergeant, drills into you how to react
Orders.
almost automatically to any emergency, things like that. You had to go through things like you had to learn how to get the gas mask on for it. You always carried a gas mask.
Mhm.
And there was always a threat that in combat that the enemy would use gas. And so you had to, you actually put you in a chamber and they put you in
Wow.
tear gas.
You had to put it on before you died, huh?
tear gas in there, and you could smell it coming, and you had to get your mask out and on before you got, before you got overcome by tear gas. So you had to learn how to use your mask, and you had
Quickly.
to do that almost automatically, very quickly. Yeah. And things how to use your rifle, how to fix your bayonet right away, because you didn't carry your bayonet on your rifle, and when you're marching,
Oh, you had to put it on.
you carried your bayonet on your belt. So when you got ready to use your bayonet, you had to get it off and attach it to your rifle real quick. You learn how to do all that. All right.
Did you get-
First and all that.
Did you have any special skills like you were known for?
Not really, because I was in training most of the time. Well, I had already completed my electricity courses up as what they call enlisted civilian, enlisted reserve. So I had that skill, but I never got to use that because I didn't really go into the Signal Corps, because I was hoping to go into the Signal Corps. But when I went into the Air Corps, I didn't get to use any of that. So.
That's what you wanted to do though?
So most of the time,
Electrical. That's what you wanted to do with electrical work?
that's what I wanted to do, yeah.
Yeah.
And most of the time I was in the, going through cadet training, and you were going to school, you used to go you were going like the regular college classes, you go to
Mhm.
classes to study flying, study
War.
how airplanes stay in the air, for example, what makes them go, things like that. So, and some of the Signal Corps training did come in kind of handy, because you had to learn Morse code and learn to operate
Yeah.
it. How to send code back and forth with the Morse code key. So,
Is there any, like, how the documentaries, all the Vietnam movies, and not so much the later war movies, but like World War II, because you were part of it.
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen Pearl Harbor yet. It
No, I
just,
haven't,
just
no.
came out.
Yeah.
Like, in those type of movies, how do you feel when you see that? Like, do you feel lucky that you weren't a part of that, or?
Feel lucky that I made it through. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of the other people are thankful that they were able to get through, because so many people didn't get through. My brother didn't get through. He was killed in a flying accident in Italy. He was overseas when he got killed, and so there were so many people that didn't get through, and that's, I guess, what you think about, I guess, first and foremost. And a lot of times you think about some of it's dramatized, and they do, sometimes they do a pretty good job of
Yeah.
dramatizing it the way I'm sure it took place in combat. I was never in combat, so I don't
Okay.
really know firsthand what happens in combat, but I'm sure that a lot of the vets could tell you whether it was real or
Right.
wasn't. Because some of the things they kind of, for Hollywood purposes, they dress it up
Yeah.
a little bit.
You gotta make the movie.
But I'm sure it was terrible. It's not fun. War is, somebody said war is hell, and war really is hell.
You mentioned you didn't have combat service. Did you have any close calls or no? Did you get scared?
Not really. I'm, flying, when you first learn to fly, you go through some experiences where you're not sure you got to get the airplane up or how to get it down. So you kind of, go through that, landing in particular. Getting off the ground isn't too bad, as long as you keep your speed up. You can, you don't want to stall out on the way up, because if you stall out, you spin, you lose airspeed and you spin in. So as long as you keep your speed up, you get on, and you're off the ground. Flying, once you're in the air, isn't that bad. But coming back down is kind of tricky, because you fly, in those days we call it by the seat of the pants, and you had to kind of judge you know, you had to know where your
Where the
landing
ground-
gear
you got
was, and
nothing.
you had to judge the distances pretty well as you approached the ground to kind of sort of level off and roll right onto the runway when you landed. I bounced a couple of times, so I guess
Yeah.
about as close as I came to having a real accident, you might say.
You didn't have any close calls with, like, where you thought you might get sent overseas or anything?
Well, we were all prepared to go overseas, really. You know, that's what we were trained to do. Like I said, I was still in flying school. I was in the last part of my flying school when the war ended. That was in 1945, and I was still at what they call advanced training. I was in B-25 school, and they let that last couple classes finish their training and get their wings. So I did get my wings then. But there was no what they call, I guess, danger of going into combat. And if I stayed in, I probably would have gone overseas on some, you know, missions assigned to some units that were flying after the war. You know, overseas, because a lot of units stayed overseas to put on what they call, I don't think they call it patrol, but after the war they
Peace kind of thing.
were like what do they call it now? Particularly Germany and Japan, they were occupation forces is what they call it. And a lot of people got into those, but I didn't stay in too long after the war ended. I decided to get out when time came. My time was up.
Yeah.
I decided to come out. So I came out in 46 and I stayed until 1946, about a year after the war ended.
Do you regret that, or because a couple guys we talked to say they should have stayed in?
Should have stayed in?
Yeah.
No, not really, no.
No.
I don't regret coming out. No. I do regret not keeping up my flying experiences.
Fly.
I thought about it, becoming a civilian pilot,
Yeah.
and I had some attempts at it, but they weren't successful. So I decided to go to school.
Did you have any interesting or inspiring moments during your service that stick
What
out?
moments? What kind of-
Like interesting or inspiring, like that stick out when you remember it? Like
Uh,
in the survey, you put down your first solo flight.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Tell us about that.
That's always.
Do you remember that or no?
Oh, yeah. Because when you're with this comes in what they call primary training. Training is done in 3 stages: primary, basic, and advanced training. The primary training is when you first learn to fly, and that's when you go up with an instructor. The instructor sits in the front and you sit in the back. There's a twin-seater airplane, and you go up with him, and he takes you through the routines, tells you how to make turns and dive and go into spins and pull out of stalls and all those kinds of routine maneuvers, and how to get into the what they call the landing pattern. Come around and teaches you how to land and so forth. Teaches you all of that, and so you do that with him for several, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and you're assigned to usually do the same. You usually have just one instructor. Once in a while you change instructors, but for the most part you're flying with the instructor. He gets pretty used to how you handle the airplane, and so one of the missions you come down and you land, and he gets out of the cockpit in front of you, and he hits the side of the airplane and says, "Go."
Oh no.
Oh no.
You gotta take off.
And you gotta remember all the stuff that he's been telling you. How to keep your nose on line, and how to keep the speed up, and when to pull back on the joist on the control stick to get the plane up off the ground, and he tells you to go up and fly a pattern and get back into the pattern and come back and land, and that's when you solo. And if you do that successfully, he says great.
If you don't.
And so So almost every day after that, you get to do, you know, solo flights, and then you learn navigation, how to find your way out and back to the field and so forth. So,
So that first flight went alright though?
that's really exciting.
That's
Be
okay.
on your own. Oh, yeah, I did it. Okay. But to be up there on your own, boy.
Like, rush is-
Why
right.
blue yonder?
The rush has gotta be amazing.
All by yourself, you know, yeah. But I guess that's really something to remember.
Do you have any experiences during your service that left a great impression on you? You rolled down a survey, Jim Crow,
Yeah, that was,
black, white.
that was, for me, I guess one of the major experiences, because I grew up in the north. I grew up in New York State, and never been out of New York State until I got into the service. And even while I was in the service, I was in like the northern and western part of the country. My basic training was in
So you weren't too far south.
near Salt Lake City, Utah, and they didn't have what they call Jim Crow laws in Utah. And on the way to cadet school, I said earlier I came through Arizona and Texas. I didn't stop in Texas, so I was on the train. I was on a Pullman train at the time. And so the first stop that we made off the train was in New Orleans. And that's in Louisiana. Louisiana, of course, is a Jim Crow state. And I had to get off the train to change trains to go from New Orleans to Biloxi,
This
which
was
is where I
train.
was going to go, which I was headed to. That's in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to get back on the train, and I went into the up to the ticket counter to show my ticket to get back on the train to go to Mississippi. And the guy told me, "You're in the wrong waiting room. You're not supposed to be in here." I
Right.
go, "Nobody in there." My color for me, and they all stared at me. That was what was wrong. I didn't know where I was at the time. And he said, "No, the colored waiting room was outside. You got to go around the back." And that's when as I walked out, because I was all by myself. I was traveling orders all by myself. And so I didn't have anybody to really argue with.
Right.
I didn't
Okay.
argue with him. So as I went back to the other waiting room, I saw the sign, colored and white waiting room. And that
There were
really
signs
shocked
up.
me. The signs are, you actually see the signs, and they're all water fountains in the toilets and things like that, colored and white. So that's kind of that was a real shock. I had heard, I guess you'd hear about those things when, you know,
Up north.
growing up, you have friends that come up from the south and they tell you.
Yeah.
They don't really talk about it that much, but you hear about it, but you don't really, it doesn't hit you until you really experience it firsthand.
You mentioned you didn't really have any friends traveling with your people. At any time did you have any like good buddies that you?
Yeah, when I left cadets, when I was in well, in basic training, of course, you make friends, and sort of, you know, people that you, what they call bunk with in the barracks. You make friends. We got separated right away when I got sent to cadet school. But when I got to Mississippi, I had met a couple, because this was like a staging area, a gathering point for all the soldiers that were going to go into cadet school. And so I met several black fellows from different parts of the country, some from New York City, some from Louisiana. You have to remember at that time the Army was segregated. There weren't, black and white units didn't
Oh,
not
there's
in
a
the
separate
same
unit
barrack.
for you guys?
Oh, yeah, we were in separate barracks, and we all went separate. We ate separately, and so forth. We ate in the same mess hall, but we ate, separately. So the Army was completely segregated according to race in those days. So I met some friends. I met a couple, men one from Boston, who was my buddy all the way through flying school, a couple of fellows I met from New York City. I don't think I've met anybody else from Brooklyn. I was from Brooklyn. And we went through flying school together, so I, sort of kept in touch with them while we were going through school, but after I got out of school, I didn't, I lost track of most of, in fact, practically everyone I went to school with. I did run into one or two fellas that were from New York City after the war, who sort of, talked about it, but
Didn't really stay in touch.
didn't
then.
have anyone that, like say it was a hometown
From around here.
buddy or anything like that that I went through the service with, no.
It must have been kind of rough and
Yeah, but you learn to make,
yeah.
all that, you learn to make
19
friends.
should be alright.
If you don't, you'll be in trouble.
Did you experience any discrimination in the Army, like from the white soldiers?
Yeah. Our drill sergeant, for example, where was he from? Texas.
Yeah.
Alabama,
Southern.
something like that. All of our officers were white. We had no black officers. The drill sergeant, every once in a while, he would forget and call us colored or colored this, or once in a while he would say nigger, because that's the way he was used to talking, and where he grew up. So the fellows would tell him, don't use that. And
So you guys are from up north.
he wouldn't. He would reluctantly, say he didn't mean to say that. But, so you heard, you ran into that, and we didn't have a lot of contact with the white troops. As I said, we were in separate parts of the post, for example. They were on one side of the post, and we stayed on our side. So we didn't have, and I didn't personally. I know some of the fellows that were in various Army posts did have fights where the white and black troops fought against each other, but I never went through anything like that. We pretty much stayed to ourselves on our side of the field. We did have a separate, we call rec rooms. We didn't share rec rooms. They had a white rec room, and they call them colored in those days. They didn't say black or African American or anything like that. They colored. So they were colored rec room and the white rec room. So, and there was a lot of protesting, writing letters on behalf of. Some of us wrote letters. I didn't write them. I know there was a couple of fellows that were with me that wrote letters to people outside of the service. This is back home.
Let them know what's going on.
This is what was happening, and so I know that there were civilian people that were trying to get that change turned around, and that persisted even at flying school. The flying school I went to was an all-black flying school. It's the only one that there was during the whole all of World War II.
Wow.
I was the only school that trained black pilots.
Wow.
That was fighter pilots during World War II, rather, sorry, during World War II. And so when you hear talk of the 99th pursuit squadron, the Tuskegee Airmen, all of them were trained at Tuskegee. And one of the things that was cited to us when they came back on rotation, they came back from overseas, and they came back to Tuskegee, and they talked to some of us cadets, who were coming behind them, and they would fly, demonstration flights for us, and those were
That's pretty cool.
real, But it was, like I say, completely segregated. So. And off the post, of course, being in Alabama, that was
Oh yeah, it's been
middle of
horrible.
Alabama, in cotton country they call it. It was completely segregated. You don't go too far. You're straight too far away from, the colored section so far in Thorpe town, because you're subject to get picked up by, the sheriff or cops or anything like that, and, for minor stuff,
Yeah. So did you have any people like that you'll never forget, like maybe like one of your like drill sergeants or at least a friend that you know, maybe you keep in touch with now, or no?
No, nobody that I can keep in touch with now. I do remember some of the people, some of the fellows that I graduated with from flying school. I remember them.
You haven't heard from them?
But I haven't heard from them at all. I do remember a couple of my instructors, flying instructors. They were older men. They had learned to fly as civilians before the war, and they were great flyers. They were terrific. They were too old to be in the service, but they were old enough to train the young pilots how to fly. So I remember a couple, Chief Allen and one named George Plimpton. Yeah, he started out, George, I remember reading about him after the war. He started his own airline in the Caribbean. And he flew commercially for a few years after the service. I don't really recall any others. I do remember our commanding officer. I'm trying to remember his name now. Colonel, what was Colonel's name? I remember seeing, I never met him personally, but I remember seeing him. He was white, of course. The commanding officer of Tuskegee was a white colonel. The flying officer, the commanding officer, for example, of the 99th Tuskegee Airmen was Colonel Benjamin O. Davis. He was one of the first black to reach general, level of a general. In fact, he just was recently given his 4-star. I think he was 80. He's now 80-some odd years old. But President Clinton gave him his 4-star. I think it was sometime last year. It was in the paper, something like that. But I try to keep in touch with the keep up with the Tuskegee Airmen through the internet. They have a website.
Oh, okay.
So I do.
There you go.
I do sign on to that, and I run across some names of some of the fellows that were in my class, and I tried to contact. But so far, I've got emails from some of them who say they remember the class, but
They don't remember you.
don't really connect each other. So I just we get to send pictures back and forth. We might remember each other. But that's one way I try to remember what took place.
Stay in touch.
So that's a great thing that the
Internet, yeah.
There is a website, the Tuskegee Airmen.
In conclusion, I just gotta ask this question. You said you enlisted, so
Yeah.
that's kind of odd for some people. I don't know. I'm sure there were a lot of people that enlisted, but most were drafted.
Yeah.
And how did you feel? You obviously felt like you were gonna go to the army, but how did you feel about the war in general? If you had to go, were you ready, or were you prepared, or scared? Or
Well, I
any
felt,
feelings?
I felt if I had to go that at least I would try to get into the branch of service that I
That
thought
you
I was
wanted.
interested in.
Mhm.
And that's why I enlisted, because there was a program to accept enlisted men into, to go to school, to go to electrical, for electrical training, other kinds of training, and you would eventually, if you were able to continue into school, go into a college program and get college training. Because I just come out of high school, and I had wanted to go to college, but the war interrupted, and so I said, well, the best way to keep going to school is to get enlisted in the Army, get into one of the Army schools. And that's but I felt that would be the best way for me to go about it, to avoid, not so much to avoid being drafted, but to at least avoid being drafted into just at random.
Mhm.
Yeah, and to have at least a little choice in where I went when I got into the service.
So did you have any idea you might become a pilot, or no?
Not initially, no, not initially. My brother always did, but not initially. I did think about it, when I saw the announcement, when I was in basic training, that they were looking for, people who, troops who were interested in becoming flyers. And I thought about it then, I said, oh, yeah, I sure would like to fly.
Alright.
And that's when I signed up.
Did you wanna add anything before we finish up? Any,
No, I tell you, it's a remarkable work that you young people are doing. I think that a lot more young people need to be aware of what happens to people when they go into the service.
Yeah.
I know you probably know a lot of servicemen yourselves, I'm sure, but it's not being in wartime. It's not.
You don't
easy
know.
to relate to.
Yeah.
You know, having to be picked up in
Out
the
of
middle of where you are.
Everyday life.
So you had to go, you had to go
Yeah.
fight.
Right.
And a lot of people, like you probably heard, remember during the Vietnam War. You remember Vietnam War at all? You
Yeah.
remember much of it. You're probably still
A little bit,
a little young for that. But
Protest.
there were a lot of people who objected and to being drafted in Vietnam. They left the country. They
Draft dodgers.
before they got out of the country, they go to Canada and go to
Yeah.
other places. During the Second World War, you didn't have those kinds of options.
No.
Once you were drafted, you had to go, and if you didn't,
Yeah.
they came and got you. So,
Yeah, they should.
but and people at the time of Vietnam, I think, were more aware of what war was really going to be like, and they said, I want to be part of it. And a lot of time, and a lot of feeling was that we weren't even supposed to be there. In the
Yeah.
first place.
a lot of,
Yeah, a lot of that feeling. So
No.
was a war that we didn't have to be in, and they didn't want to be part of it.
This is just one of my opinions, but I think if a World Wars class, like such as this one, like this is just an elective, like volunteered to be in it. But if this was taught to like every student, like English class is,
Right.
you might not have that much violence in later life or something like that.
That's quite possible. I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
More aware of
Right, they know.
of the consequences of war.
Yeah.
People would have second thoughts about getting into fights and
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Not worth
Exactly.
fighting.
Exactly.
and there's about 20 students out of over 1,000 in the school. That's all we had in that class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only one class, yeah.
Hmm.
This is about our, what is it, 10th interview.
Oh yeah. Have you done all World War II people? Or?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to get,
Vets?
and then we're gonna maybe to next year move on to Vietnam and Korea.
Oh yeah.
Cold War.
Vietnam ought to be real interesting.
Yeah.
Korean might not be much different from World War II.
Right.
There was a draft during the Korean War.
My grandfathers were both in the Korean War.
Both Korean and
Told me some-
Vietnam.
Some crazy stories.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot of Vietnam, a lot of people say that they don't like to talk about it, really.
Yeah.
People from
Vietnam
Vietnam.
was pretty horrendous. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hand-to-hand combat in Vietnam.
Yeah.
A lot of
Face to
like the
face.
wars, that happen now. There's not
Right.
all that hand-to-hand combat. For instance, the Gulf
Persian
War
Gulf. Yeah.
was like almost like people in the arcades shooting.
Yeah. 3,000 miles away. Just
Yeah,
shooting.
right. Pushing buttons. And,
Yeah.
In fact, they said that's one of the reasons that the American soldiers were so proficient, because they were used to playing
Right.
arcade games.
Yeah, they're good at it, cards.
Yeah, they were good at that. Pressing buttons, watch things shoot on.
All right. I think me and Jimmy like to thank you for taking the time.
Well, thanks for having me.
And,
I'm glad. Thanks for inviting
Someday
me.
it'll probably help someone else.
Am I the only African American? I hope
So
not.
far, yeah, you
So
are.
far. Yeah.
Oh, you got to get some more.
I know.
Yeah, we got some other
Tough.
They
Two
put-
vets around.
Yeah,
Like
he
we-
just goes whoever calls.
Right. Whoever calls him back, because we sent out the papers to probably, 50
Oh,
around
you
the
did send
area.
out, you sent out invitations?
Right. And whoever replies
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
really?
It's been advertised too on TV.
on TV and
I didn't see that.
newspaper.
I didn't see that on television.
Well, on like 11 o'clock news. So the first one
Oh.
we did, they showed the two people doing it.
Oh, yeah?
He had a couple calls back from
Yeah.
guys who had watched.
Oh, really?
just because
Yeah.
like, oh, that'd be interesting, you know.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, fine,
Yeah.
well,
I guess
we gotta get some more, cause,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
there, that's one of the things
They're calm.
disturbed me about some
No
of
one-
the war, not the movies so much, but some of the war, even the movies, but a lot of the war, documentaries, they don't show any,
Black guys.
black soldiers.
Yeah.
Black, airmen, soldiers,
Yeah.
we're there,
Well, maybe the photographers.
big numbers.
Right, or race and stuff, maybe the photographers.
Photographers,
yeah.
well, you know, people that put together the show, you know, won't think about it. You know.
Yeah, you gotta have everyone.
You gotta think about it, we're part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me, and,